Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Rescue Dog Pod. My name is Helen Summerfield Brown, and I am the president and founder of Stray Dog Support. I'm so glad you're here. Whether you're one of our wonderful regular listeners or you're tuning in for the first time, welcome. Thank you for joining us and for being part of this community that cares so deeply about animals and the people who dedicate their lives to helping them. Today's episode is a really special one. Actually, it is very close to my heart, and we're going to be talking about something that has personally affected me, and I know it affects so many others who work in rescue, animal welfare, or any kind of caregiving role, and that is compassion fatigue. This is one of those episodes that you truly shouldn't miss if you've ever been involved in rescue work or any type of carers work. It's an honest, important, and deeply human conversation. And I'm really looking forward to opening up about this topic and having a real heartfelt discussion. There is absolutely no shame in admitting that you suffer from compassion fatigue. In fact, acknowledging it is one of the bravest and healthiest things you can do. So let's begin. So today I am incredibly honored to welcome our guest, Patricia Smith. Patricia is a certified compassion fatigue specialist and the founder of the Compassion Fatigue Awareness Project. For the past 23 years, she has been speaking and facilitating workshops on this subject both nationally and internationally. She first learned about compassion fatigue while serving as the Training and Development Director at Humane Society, Silicon Valley in the San Francisco Bay Area. And Patricia later went on to work as a consultant for American Humane and the ASPCA in New York City. With a background in journalism, she has authored 5 books on compassion fatigue, including Stress, Compassion Fatigue and Burnout Handling in Veterinary Practice, published by Grupo Assis in an international veterinary publisher. That's a bit of a mouthful, Patricia. Patricia also presented a powerful TED Talk titled Navigating the Path to Wellness, Compassion Fatigue in Caregiving, which you can watch at www.compassionfatigue.org. So, Patricia, welcome to the Rescue Dog Pod.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very, very happy to be here. And something you said just really struck me. And one of the symptoms of compassion fatigue is denial. We want to keep going and we want to keep helping, and we just ignore the symptoms. But acknowledging that you definitely have this is one of the bravest things you can ever do, because once you know that, you can do something about it. So your words were
Absolutely.
certainly words of wisdom.
Well, thank you, because I mean, we talked prior to doing this podcast, and just a little background. Like, I saw Patricia talking at a law seminar, maybe a month ago. It was out in Chicago, Illinois, and it was like my go-to seminar topic, and I really wanted to watch it. And after I listened to you, I was like, I have to have you on my show, because you see a lot of shaking head, like nodding heads, like, yeah, that's what I suffer from. And, your words resonated with me, because it was like, I suffer from that. And it is truly something that anyone in the rescue world really needs to take a look at, because it is so common and it is so real, and it's something that has a name to it, and there's something that we can do about it. So I loved your talk, and I was like, I gotta have you on, because my listeners will love you, because most of my listeners are rescuers or in the rescue world, and it's really critical. So I'm grateful that you are taking the time today to talk with us about this.
Well, I'm honored to be here, Helen. The work you're doing just kind of blows me away. Thank you for doing that. It needs to be done, but we need to be well. We need to be happy, healthy caregivers, and there's ways to do that.
Exactly.
It's not easy.
Exactly.
I've been on
It's
this
not easy. It takes work, right?
Right, right. It takes a lot of work. I first learned that I had high levels of compassion fatigue when I did that presentation at the Humane Society where I worked. I took a self test, which I'll tell you about that, and realized I had high levels. And I tell you, it's a constant battle, because compassion fatigue does not go away. It always stays with us, and we have to have strategies to constantly fight it. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And that's the only way we can deal with it, is acknowledge we have it,
Exactly.
and then find out what strategies work for us and use them constantly, because I'll tell you, it creeps up. And after COVID-19 and everything we're seeing, in the political arena, it's making all of us just insecure and fearful, and so we have to work even harder now. than we did before.
Right.
So hopefully this,
Absolutely.
some of the
Absolutely.
things that I'm sharing will be helpful to you.
Well, let's start at the basics because, a lot of people, they've heard of it, they may know what it is, but maybe you can give us some insight as to what is compassion fatigue and maybe how does it differ from stress or burnout, because those terms are kind of used, all together. And is it different? How does it what is it? Let's start with the what is it?
Well, the sad thing is that, post-traumatic stress, secondary traumatic stress, which is compassion fatigue, everyday stress, burnout, all of these things are very hard to take apart and see the difference because they're all so similar. But there are differences, and we'll go into that. I'm going to talk first about compassion fatigue, and then about stress, and then about burnout, and things we can do to help ourselves deal with these things every day. And I'm going to actually read my definition of compassion fatigue so I don't leave anything
Okay.
out. Compassion fatigue is a secondary traumatic stress syndrome that can include emotional, physical, and spiritual depletion in those providing care to another. It's associated with caregiving where people or animals are experiencing significant emotional or physical pain and suffering. So it's a secondary traumatic stress. While you're caring for another, an animal, or a person, if you don't have the proper boundaries, not to involve your own, you know, uh, traumatic stress that you have in your life, it can devastate your life. And I can speak to that from
Mm,
my own experience. It can ruin relationships, it can ruin friendships, it can ruin your health. And people will say, oh, that's kind of all in your head. And I always say, well, yeah, it kind of is. It's in your head, it's in your bones, it's in your cells, it's in your blood. It takes over your body if you don't do something
yeah.
about it. And I'm afraid that a lot of physicians that we go to for help just tell us to take a 2 week vacation to Hawaii and we'll feel better. And yeah, we will while we're there, but we'll come back and it'll surface again. It does not go away.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah.
that is what
And
compassion
yeah.
fatigue is. So, what are the symptoms? How do we know we have this? Number one, we want to isolate. We want to isolate because caregivers are go-to people. We're the ones who get everything done because we give up our freedom, we give up our sleep, we give up sometimes our meals to get things done. We'll do anything to help. So we want to isolate because people just keep coming to us and asking us for things. We
Mm,
might have emotional outbursts. And what's that? Chances are very good that these symptoms started and compassion fatigue levels started when we were young caregivers. I often ask in a group, how many of you were caregivers at a young age, and almost all of the hands go up. So it starts at a very early age. And what happens is we carry all of the traits into adulthood and we keep pushing it down and pushing it down. And one day something triggers us and we have this emotional outburst. We feel sadness and apathetic.
mm,
We go into a job, and I saw this all the time at the Humane Society Silicon Valley, where I was the training and development manager. These particularly young people would come in, and they were so excited. They were going to help the animals, and I had this myself. That we're going to make everything all right, and the longer we stay there, the more we realize it's not getting any better. So soon we become apathetic. We have persistent physical ailments. It's the body telling us, stop, you're hurting me, stop doing this, you need to take care of yourself. But we don't. So we get the constant headache, we get the scratchy throat, we get the back of the neck muscle ache, we get the low back ache. These are all gastrointestinal problems. These are all persistent ailments that come with compassion fatigue, and those are the stress points of the human body. Sometimes we have substance abuse. We want to get away from what we're feeling. We're feeling pain and it never goes away. So we reach for the tobacco or too much computer or chocolate or alcohol or pornography. And it's nothing to be ashamed of. We're trying to get rid of that pain by, giving us distractions. And unfortunately, those are not healthy distractions. And what we're going to talk about later on is healthy ways to distract ourselves from the pain that we're feeling. We have blunted or deadened emotions. This is so very,
mm,
very common. Helen, I know you know all about this. Pretty soon you just say,
yeah.
well, I don't really care. I'm just going to keep doing this. Hypervigilance, hyperarousal. And where does that happen? Mostly in the ER people I work with, emergency people, paramedics, ER doctors, nurses, firefighters, people that are always waiting for the bell to ring so they can jump into action and help. And that keeps our body in this very high cortisol state, which is extremely dangerous for our health. We have recurring nightmares or flashbacks. And I often tell people, and I don't diagnose and I don't counsel. I'm not a mental health professional. I just know an awful lot about compassion fatigue. I tell them if they're having nightmares and they can't sleep, they probably need professional help. That's very hard to get out of that by yourself. You have excessive complaints. Nothing is ever right because you aren't right. You aren't feeling right, so nothing looks right. And then of course we have the denial. I don't have this. And I see this so much in animal welfare people, particularly animal control people. They go, no, it doesn't bother me at all. I do what I have to do. It's my job. Well, it definitely is bothering them. Yeah. So, what are the causes? Other directedness. Somewhere along the line, we learn to put our own others' needs before our own. So we're always on hyper alert. Who can I help? What can I do? What can I make better? What can I fix? We're very big fixers. So it's other directedness. And the path to wellness, to becoming healthy again, is from going to other directedness, where your eyes are always looking out, everything else is to blame, everything else is the problem, to self directed. What can I do to make my life better? What can I do to better my relationships? When we start questioning ourselves and become self directed, we start the healing process. Oftentimes, we provide service to others with high levels of compassion fatigue. Either we don't know it or we're in denial. A lack of personal or professional coping skills. If indeed we became caregivers at a young age, there was no adult there teaching us about things that we need to know about financial matters, time management, how to look for healthy relationships. We don't have any of those skills, but we can learn them. We can learn them at any age. And the big one is lack of personal boundaries. We just
Mm.
never learned, to bring our boundaries in real tight and decide who and what we allow in our lives. And one of the things we do in the healing path is to create a self-help plan and look at some of those things and say, that particular person constantly drains me. They're called emotional vampires. They're people that cannot deal with their own emotions. So what do when they see you? They put them all on you. They walk away feeling pretty good because they've gotten rid of them. You
Yeah, I
walk
think that that's I
Yeah.
get that a lot. I know a lot of people do that, and I'm just going back over some of the over some of the symptoms of compassion fatigue. 'Cause I'm sure there are so many people that are listening, going, "Oh my gosh, that's me!" Like I feel isolated.
Yes,
I know
yes.
personally, like my other half is like going, "You have to leave the house." And going to the grocery store to pick up the groceries from the parking lot where they bring it out is not leaving the house, Helen. You need to go. And I'm like, I don't want to go anywhere. I just want to stay at home with my dogs in my safe space. And it's, I used to be a very extroverted person. Like I used to like going out. I used to like have a lot of friends, but now I'm just like this isolated, this in this bubble, and I don't even want to, you know, go out and see friends. And I think that that's really important, is to have friends, but I just don't have the energy for friends, which is really
Well,
sad. I don't
right.
have the energy to go anywhere, and it makes you more isolated. But I don't know if there is comfort in grief. I don't know if that's the right word, but there's always seems like this level of comfort. And it's like you just don't want to talk to anybody. And sleeping is hard and eating is hard. You don't want to eat. And people just think that in this rescue world, we sit here and we pat puppies all day and we play with kittens, but it
Yeah,
is
right.
emotion. It's emotionally, yeah, right, and it's emotionally draining. We talked for hours before, and I was giving you a bit about how I was feeling, and you're like, "Oh, Helen, I'm worried about you," and I'm like,
Yes, I
"Yeah, I
am.
think
You,
appreciate
you're a
that."
classic. Classic. The good thing is
So
that
I'm
you
a
recognize
classic.
it, and it seems to me like you want to do something about it, and that's the first step, of course. Those personal boundaries, and when you do your self-care plan and you do decide I have to do something about this, I mean that's one thing I did was I went from shelter work to I became the program director at Ronald McDonald House at Stanford.
Mm.
So I traded euthanizing animals for dying children. That's how bad I was and how enmeshed I was in the whole compassion fatigue issue. And after I left Ronald McDonald House, I just said to myself, I was on, walking on all fours. I was in pretty bad
Mm.
shape, and I thought if I don't do something for myself, I'm not gonna make it. I'm just gonna get more and more ill and more, exhausted and all of those things. And that's when I decided to, start this path. And it's been a long one, but it's so satisfying to take care of yourself and to have those personal boundaries. And oftentimes, when we change our personal boundaries, it means leaving some people behind. Like
Mm.
I said, it's a painful process. There were two friendships in particular that I had to let go because they were emotional vampires, and I always got a lot out of it because I felt needed. Whenever we'd get
Mm.
together,
Ooh.
all about them, and I was, oh, that's terrible. Oh, maybe I can do that for you, maybe. And then I realized, no, that's not what's going on. They're sliming me, and that's the term that psychologists actually use. You're being slimed with someone else's stuff that they need to take care of. you know One of the
Right.
secrets of healing is what's all inside. You have to put it outside, and I'll show you some strategies on how to do that. And people who hold it all inside, they don't have healthy strategies to get rid of all of that emotion and that pain, and they don't self-regulate. And this is the path,
Yeah.
is self-regulation,
Yeah.
and learning when something triggers you, instead of an emotional outburst or isolation or one of those things, you learn how to deal with it. You go for a walk, you call a trusted friend who pats you on the back and says you're doing a great job. Helen, you can call me. um, that's what you need to
I
do.
got you on my 911 call. Don't worry, Patricia. I got you on my top of my contacts because
And then
I'm like,
the
I
one,
know.
the one thing I wanted to mention as far as causes, and that's the history of unresolved childhood trauma.
Mm.
Um, that's coming to light more and more every day. Social workers, psychologists, all of them are dealing more and more with people who realize they suffered from a tremendous amount of trauma as a child, and they never did anything about it. But the good news is you can now. The You can teach an old dog new tricks, right? So how do we
Right.
manage this
Right. Right.
compassion fatigue? If we have it, what do we do? We accept that the
Yeah. What do
situation.
we do?
Well, I- you accept your situation is stressful. Um, Oftentimes, like I said, when I work particularly with new hires, in any of the work I've done and any of the caregiving work I've done, um, they want to make things better. We as caregivers, we want to fix things. We want to make things better, and the problem is it's not going to get better. It's the human condition, and now it's worse than ever. And we have to accept that the situation is stressful, and it's okay. What we have to learn to do is manage our stress. And then we have to learn to create some balances in our lives, work time, relationship time, me time. And people have hard time with that because we love our computers. And when I have a little extra time, I'll go on Facebook, or I'll go on, Instagram or something, and see what's going on. And I've had to learn to cut back on that because it's not healthy. You have to build a healthy support system. You have to find people who support you. Um, let's see, you have to build your resiliency skills. A lot of people, particularly in animal welfare, something very stressful happens and you feel like, I can't handle this, I can't deal with one more. You have to learn to say to yourself, I dealt with it before and I can deal with it again. And I'll talk to you about resiliency skills in just a minute. Take the
Okay.
professional quality of life self test, which is where I learned that I had the high levels. It's free, I'll give you the link at the end. And learn to self regulate those emotions. That's so very important. And if you feel like you've blunted, then you've got to do some things to bring back those emotions. Um, there's a lot of horrible things going on right now, and it's all in our face between the internet and the news on TV and people liking to share horrible things. We have to learn to really manage that. There's a lot of beauty out there. I just finished a book, it's at the printer now, on the healing arts, things that we can do to help us heal. Do some artwork. You don't have to be an artist to do artwork, you can do whatever you want. Listen to
Mm.
music. The neuroscientists are now teaching us that music changes our brains immediately. If you work at a desk and there's a lot of stress coming your way, have your earbuds, your headphones handy with your favorite tunes. It can be anything. It can be classical. It can be Bad Bunny. It can be, um, it doesn't matter as long
Any.
as it's authentic to you. Okay, it has to be authentic to you so that it means something to you. So stress. Stress is a natural physiological, psychological response to perceived or real challenges. In today's world, we have a lot of real challenges, but a lot of work we do is perceived. We're actually doing an excellent job, but we perceive we're not doing enough. We look at the stack of papers on our desk and say, I can't get through this. Through that's too much. That's perceived. You can get through it. You've done it before. So we have to learn to manage stress. Stress can be healthy. So we have to learn to identify our source of stress. And it's funny because oftentimes in presentations, someone will raise their hand and I'll call on them and they go, well, my partner is my main source of stress. And I said, that's common. I said that you have to have those difficult conversations. You have to talk to that person, figure out what it is you would like from them. And then, without yelling or accusing or you always type, conversations, tell that person what they can do to help. This is particularly true with children. Children can be very, very helpful around the house, but you have to ask them in a certain way. So learning more about effective communication would be a very wise thing.
Mm.
Learn to accept what you can't change. I work with a lot,
That's the big one, Patricia.
isn't it?
That is the big one because I always say like I want to change the world. And everyone's and you like you can only do what you can only do. If I'm getting like 300 messages for help every single day from all over the world, it's like I can't physically do help 300 people or 300 dogs. So you have to be okay with not doing that. And
Yes.
that's hard. I think it's a guilt thing, Patricia. Like I always feel so guilty that I can't help them all. I feel like the weight of the world is on my shoulders. I feel like I'm responsible for the whole world. And when I can't help a dog, I'm like, or a person, I feel so guilty. It's an
Oh, guilt.
awful feeling.
Yeah, guilt is always present, isn't it? And
Yeah.
the whole idea of I want to change the world, we change the world by changing ourselves. Okay. I was talking to a friend the other day that we worked together many, many years ago at a health system. And she said, I'm really learning a lot. I'm learning that I can't change the world. Uh, and I don't particularly want to go work at a soup kitchen. She said it would upset me terribly, and I don't want to do that to
Mm.
myself. So what I've decided to do is to be kinder. She says, I let people go
Mm.
in front of me at the grocery store. I give someone a seat if they need it. I do a favor if someone asks a favor. She says, I'm focusing on kindness. Just think if we all focused on kindness, how our
Mm.
world would change. So you have
Absolutely.
to focus on what you can change. You have to learn this little word that caregivers don't know, and the word is no. You can say no.
That is true.
How about that, huh? Um, we can do it in a very polite, nice way. I'd really like to help you, but right now my time is very tight and I don't have the resources to do that. Maybe if always try to direct them somewhere else. That's
Mm.
being helpful. Maybe if you ask so and so, she can help you right now. And maybe if you could get back to me in 3 or 4 months, I might be able to help, but I can't right now. Thank you for asking me. It's okay to say no. Tighten those personal boundaries. To me, that's number one. I
Yeah,
mean,
that is.
I used to have
Yeah, that's
people,
the one.
I'd get on a bus or a train and someone would come sit next to me and they would unload their whole horrible life on me. And I used to think, isn't this wonderful? I must be someone very special that they picked me out of everyone on the train, to share
Mm-hmm.
such, personal things. And then I started to realize, hey, wait a minute. They'll talk to anybody that talks to them. If I say no or I move, they go to the next person. They
Right.
keep trying to find somebody to help them when indeed they need to help themselves. And
Mm.
practice this empathic discernment. And that's trying to figure out when you're being triggered, when you're being hurt, and put a stop to it. If someone comes up to you and they want to tell you the most horrible story about an abused animal, which I think all of us who are listening, that's the worst. I cannot handle abuse stories. Um, to stop them right away and say, please don't tell me any more of that. I can't deal with it. It's okay to do that. You're protecting yourself.
Yeah, that is important. I mean, it's like, you see when like the commercials come on for the ASPCA and the Sarah McLachlan music is playing. How many of us reach for the remote and change the channel, put the
Oh my
mute on
God.
because it's just, you
Yeah.
just can't handle it. But what about for people like me who see it every day? That you get the videos and the messages, and you have to see it somewhat to know how to handle that. That's the difficult part because you can't unsee it, and I don't want to see it, but I see it every day when I wake up. I go to my phone. I have such anxiety. I sweat. My stomach is aching. I have a headache because I just know that there is going to be like so many messages with so many videos and photos of dying, sick, tortured dogs. It's really overwhelmingly depressing. And so and you feel like you have to help them. So how do it's like that's hard though when you're seeing it and you have to see it somewhat.
Yeah, but it's being so cruel to yourself by allowing you to be in a position to have to do that. Um, I'm not sure what you could do. Perhaps on your email, you could have a banner that says, that do not share. Sometimes people have to be taught not to share that. They can share their emotions and how badly they feel about something they just went through, but they do not need to share the gory details. That's the trauma talking, and they need to learn
Mm-hmm.
how to heal that. I
Mm.
can't stress that enough. It's not fair to you. You're doing really good work. And my suggestion was you can't allow it anymore. You've got to figure out a way to stop it because you're really hurting yourself and it's going to get worse. I call it the universe. The universe will keep handing us things until we learn the lesson. That's, you find that?
Yeah, I've heard that.
It
Yep,
keeps
I've heard.
coming your way.
I agree.
Yeah.
I
Or
agree.
people in your life keep coming your way and then they say something and it's a red flag to you. It's like, uh oh, this is another emotional vampire. Remove yourself immediately and don't feel bad about
Right.
it or guilty because they'll go find someone else. That's their modus
Right.
operandi is to find someone else. So I'm not sure, in your position, Helen, what to do, but there's answers. There's answers, and you've got to
There are
find.
answers
So, what is the
for sure,
definition
for
of
sure.
burnout? Because we've got compassion fatigue, which is a secondary stress. We've got stress, which is a primary stress, happens to you, and then we have burnout. So, burnout is characterized by emotional exhaustion, negative attitudes, and feeling toward one's coworkers and a job role. Burnout is associated with job dissatisfaction, low commitment to the job, and absenteeism. Compassion fatigue is for caregivers. Burnout is for any professional. You can be an accountant, you can be a bank teller, you can be an interior designer. You can get burnout. You're not going to get compassion fatigue in any of those because it has to do with caregiving. Okay,
Mm.
that's very important to remember. We can burn out on the job, that's a caregiving job, but basically, burnout is something that can happen in any profession. In 2019, the World Health Organization finally classified burnout as an occupational phenomenon, which they could have asked any of us. We know that.
Right.
It's the organizations that are dysfunctional. The people are good, hard workers, and I've seen that everywhere that I've worked. Any caregiving organization, there is dysfunction, and it normally comes from the top. And I don't know how you change that. A lot of people leave. They decide this isn't for me, and there's nothing wrong with that. I eventually, after Ronald McDonald House, I took myself off the front line and decided to start the Compassion Fatigue Awareness Project and help people with my writing. I'm a professional writer. I come from a journalism and publishing background, and that's how I can help people. I could do the TED Talk, I could give presentations, I could do things like I'm doing right here, and that's how I can help without putting myself on the front lines. I'm older now, and it really affects me horribly. What's going on in our world is, affects me terribly. I have to really protect myself. So, how do we
Yeah.
manage burnout? Burnout doesn't go away. We have to take action. We have to change something. Evaluate those job options. Is that really the best job you can be in for who you are? Is it maybe another job in the organization that you could do? You need to seek some support, exercise, sleep, rest, and of course, take time off if possible. There's nothing better for our health than to take time and be by ourselves in a place of beauty, I would hope. I moved from the San Francisco Bay Area 10 years ago up to Friday Harbor, which is in the San Juan Islands in the state of Washington in the Pacific Northwest. And it was the best thing I've ever done for myself. I live on an island with several thousand people, and the beauty is overwhelming. All I have to do is look out my window, and I see the water and the ferries going back and forth. And it just has done more for me than anything I've ever done in my life. So I highly, highly recommend if you can put yourself in a place of beauty, that will help. Beauty heals. So, what do we do? Let me look here. I have some notes in it. How do we create a self care plan? Why is that important? Well, it's thoughtfully constructed and intentionally engaged. It's a roadmap to achieve your good health and wellness. Select one authentic and sustainable action to achieve success. I call it the dot theory. Do one thing. You've made the commitment, you've made the dedication to yourself that you're going to make some changes in your life. Don't write down 10 things you're going to change. You won't do it. We can't do it. It's too much for us. Do one thing. Decide what's the most important thing and in which area. Is it in your job? Is it in your relationship? Is it in your self-care? Do you need to walk more? Do you need to eat better, eat more healthy? Whatever it is, put that in your self-care plan and do that one thing until you master it. And then when you feel like, okay, I've got a good exercise plan and I'm sticking by it, take on the next thing. This is why New Year's resolutions don't last. We all do that.
Right.
And oh, we put 10, 12 things on that list that we're going to do. And this is my year and things are going to change for me. And doggone, it lasts a week, if that long, because it's too much with everything
Yes,
else
for
we
sure.
got to do in our lives.
Yeah, yeah. I try to do a one thing is to, because I used to work like 7 days a week. It'd be like Sunday and I'm doing emails and blah, blah, and messaging and calls. And it's like, I just need a half a day, maybe a day. My DOT, do one thing, is to try to take a little bit of Sunday off. And
Oh,
that took a
okay.
lot of guilt and a lot of work. Like I feel guilty when I'm not working, but I'm like, I just need a day, half a day, just to sit and watch TV, just to sit and go, or go, I mean, not sit and go for a walk. I can't do sit and walk, but just to go for a walk, play with the dogs. I take my dogs to agility every other week, and that is like my happy space. So that's like just a couple of hours. That's not rescue work, and that's helped me a lot.
Yeah, without a doubt. And one of the main things is, being with your dog. I mean, they're our best friends. Our animals are the best things that ever happened to us. And I know when I used to do questionnaires for the newly hired at the shelter, I'd say, what would make your job better? What would make each job, each day better? Because how we spend our days is how we spend our lives. What would make your day better? And inevitably, they would all say, I would like to spend more time with the animals. I joined this organization to work with the animals, and what do? I'm working with humans, and I'm not real
that's,
fond of humans. Isn't
that's
working?
me. That's me. Yeah, I work
Yeah.
more with the humans and the animals, and it's. I get so much enjoyment when I go to a transport and I'm actually with the physical dogs that I've helped. That is like my happy place. My 50th birthday, Patricia. I wasn't spending it at a party. I spent my 50th birthday driving a blind tripod from Chicago to North Carolina, and I spent the night alone in the hotel with this blind tripod and
Oh,
for my 50th birthday, and it was the best birthday I could have ever had. I was away from my, obviously, from my loved ones, which was sad, but I was like, this is my happy place.
yeah.
And
And
because they
there's
are the
nothing wrong
best.
with it. Yeah, they are worthy. I've been reading so many quotes and so much about Jane Goodall, and
Mm,
what an angel that woman was. I mean, I knew it, but now I know it even more. But she was asked, I can't remember who the interviewer was, but he said to her, "I have a secret that I just found out about you." And she said, "What was that? What's that?" And he said, "Chimpanzees are not your favorite animal." And he said, I heard that they were dogs." And she just melted. And she said, "Dogs are my favorite animal." And then she went into this long list of adjectives about how dogs have saved her life and they're so kind and they're so loyal and they're so wonderful and all that. And I thought, yeah, anyone who loves a dog um, gets that. And it's all
yeah,
animals. I mean, my niece has a
all
cat.
animals.
she thinks is the greatest thing on earth, you know. So it's not, it's all animals, but dogs in particular. And I understand why you know, you have an organization to help them. They're worthy of our help and our time, that's for sure.
They
So I have a
absolutely are, and
few
they're very humble.
on, yes, on the spot self-care practices. These are things that I've done myself and also things that have come up in workshops that people have shared. Because when I do workshops or training, what's wonderful is the particularly if everyone is from the same organization, they learn more from each other than they do from me because they're in that environment and they're able to understand when someone makes a comment about the environment that they're working in because they're in it too. You know, I mean, I've worked in healthcare, I've worked in elder care, I've worked in all kinds of, you know, healing type organizations, and you can see it. You know, the people are all experiencing the same things, and it helps to talk to each other. And oftentimes they don't. Helen, you mentioned the TED Talk. Um, People have contacted me over the years and have said that they use that as a training tool. It's only 18 minutes long, but they say, you know, they watch it for 18 minutes, and what it does is it sparks conversation. And people in organizations that normally don't have much to do with each other, particularly if they're in different departments, they start talking to each other because they realize that they have a shared experience and they can help each other. So these are some things that have come up. Breathe deeply. I've only learned about this about 5 years ago, and I tell you, it is my go to healing process. Whenever there's something that upsets me or I'm in a situation that there's a lot of stress around, I quietly breathe, and it's a 4, 6, 7 count. So you breathe in four, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you hold it for the count of six. And this is only going on in your own head, so no one even knows you're doing it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then on the count of seven, you slowly let the air out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And it's nature's way of calming us. It's free, it's easy, and it works. I cannot tell you how well it works for everything. When you're working with humans, when you're working with a project and you're getting frustrated, when something's bothering you, when you see something that triggers you, take a few of those deep breaths and you'll find yourself, you know, calm, and then you're able to deal with it. If you
Hmm.
stay in that, you know, hyper vigilant mode, you won't be able to take care of it. Meditate, another thing I do on a daily basis. I can't tell you how much it helps your health. Um, Meditate, learn more about it. I can't stress it enough. Learn to laugh. You know, we work in difficult
Yeah.
situations. We're living in a very difficult time, but laughter heals. um, my sister is my soulmate, and she lives down in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm way up here in the Pacific North. But she drives over the mountain every day to work, and every night when she drives home, it's about an hour drive. We talk on the phone, and we don't have that much to talk about most of the time, but we laugh, we tell stories, we tell memories of our sister who's gone and our mother and father who are gone, and we laugh, and it makes us, it just, we hang up feeling 100% better, and she can be present for her husband, which is a really good thing because oftentimes we take things home with us, and that's not good for our partners.
I
Journal.
think that's great. Oh, sorry, can I
Yes.
just go back to the laughing thing? Because I think that's really important because, when we talked earlier, I was like, I laugh in a way that it's like for show. Like I don't genuinely feel happy. And when I laugh
Yes.
or I'm
Yes.
feeling happy, I'm like, I feel guilty for feeling happy, for laughing because I know there's still animals suffering. And a good friend of mine said, Helen, even if you laugh, or don't laugh, that animal is still suffering. So you laughing is a good remedy, and so I'm trying to be better at watching comedies that actually make me laugh or something like that because I miss it. I really miss laughing. I really miss the
Oh
feeling of
yeah.
just pure
Yeah.
joy and laughter. And it is when you feel that it does make you feel a whole lot better. But it's just trying to be okay with laughing, even when they're still suffering. If that
Yes.
makes
And you
sense.
know, one of the things that psychologists tell us is dark humor is very acceptable and it's very healing. It's okay. Just make sure you do it with people who get it and aren't affected by it in a negative way. You know, make sure it's someone who gets that you're just joking and it's relieving some stress. It's okay, you
Mm,
know?
hmm.
So
Yep, for sure.
you mentioned guilt a lot, and I have to tell you, I haven't done a lot of research or studying or writing about guilt, but you have pressed a button. I'm going to find out more about guilt because that seems to be a very core value for you, and I'm sure it is for many, many people on different levels, not just working, in animal welfare. They've, people that are have enough money to buy food right now are feeling guilty because there's so many people who don't. And I think that maybe acting on that guilt, you know, um, I feel guilty about this, so what can I do to make things better for those who don't have as much as I do? I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm just thinking on the spot here, but I'm going to do
Yeah.
some work on that. Um,
Yeah, I think that'd be a good to talk about that. I mean, the guilt because, like I've told you, I have stress. It's just like you just feel like I live in a nice house, right? I know, and that my dogs sleep in warm beds every night, and I feel
yes,
guilty that there are people struggling, and I feel guilty if I'm eating food and I know or giving food to my dogs, and I know there are dogs not eating. I feel guilty if I'm going to do something fun when I'm thinking, well, if I shouldn't be here having fun. I should be at home on my computer trying to figure out how to help more dogs. I shouldn't be able to enjoy my life. It's almost like a martyr syndrome. Syndrome. I don't know if it's like, well, if the world is suffering, therefore I have to suffer, and that kind of makes it okay if we're all suffering. It's hard to
okay.
describe. Probably
You
not
really,
describing it
you really
well.
have a real grip on it, and I think getting to the core. Like I said, I'm not a mental health professional. I've just read an awful lot on this stuff, and I have wonderful, psychologists who back me up on my work. But it's such a core thing with you. It's got to come from somewhere. These things don't just shoot into our brain. They come from somewhere, and maybe
Mm,
doing some work on your childhood or growing up or where you got that whole subject of guilt to be such a center of your feelings and your emotions when you do this wonderful work you do. Um, I think that's worth looking at, and maybe you can heal that, and then you know do some action that relieves some of that guilt. Um,
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of for me, and I know I've talked to some of my other colleagues who are in the animal world, and they also feel guilt. Like
yes,
I have a dear
yes,
friend of mine who runs a rescue in India, and when she goes away on vacation, and you feel bad, and you're almost ashamed to say, "I'm going on vacation." Because you feel ashamed that you're going to be going to have a fun time and you're getting away from it, where you think about the people that are in shelters and these people that are in these poorer countries that cannot get away from it, and so
right,
you just don't want to enjoy yourself because they're not able to get away or leave it. I mean, I'm in a way lucky because I work. I'm detached from it. I'm not in Egypt. I'm not in India, and I can shut at the end of the night. I can shut my computer down and I go to bed. Whereas these people are, they can't. They're surrounded by 300 dogs looking at them for food. So I feel a bit blessed in that way, but I feel like I should be with them in the grief all the time.
right, right. And as humans, we can hold. I use the expression hold. We can hold a lot of emotions. We can hold feeling badly that people don't have as much as we do, but we can also feel badly, um, or feel good that we're doing something to change that in the life that we're living, and we
Mm,
can hold. It isn't one or the other. We have to make room for all of it.
right.
Um,
Yeah, and
yeah,
it probably
and
does come from childhood because like as I talked to you, I mean, I when I grow up, my father died when I was young, and I grew up in a foster kind of environment because my dad was sick when I was one, and I was always fostered out, and I know what it's like to not have money. I know because we were very poor. I know what it's like to struggle. So I'm feeling that taking on their emotions because I lived it. I've lived being poor. I've lived being in a broken home. I've lived it. And so maybe that's just like, that's why I do this is because I'm always for the broken. I don't know. And it's just stuck with me and I can never get out of it.
yes, yes. Yeah, those are incredible insights for you, and that definitely sounds right. You share their pain and their suffering. Of course we do. Um, but you deserve more too for your life, and somehow you're going to have to, you know, figure that out.
I think the word deserve is I think the word deserve, you hit the nail on the head. It's like maybe a lot of us don't feel like we deserve to be
Yeah.
happy.
Yes.
And that's why this is, it just comes so much and you take on so much. But you know, I think trying to, like you said, learn about, do your self-care plan. I mean, you know, we talked about, you got the journaling as another option you're about to talk about before I interrupted with my life story. Sorry
Oh,
about
no,
that.
no, no. These stories are perfect because anybody listening to this is saying, "Oh my gosh, I feel the same way as she does." They're identifying with you, and that helps. It helps to know we're not alone. That's huge right now. Loneliness, particularly among the elderly, is a huge problem,
Mm.
huge health problem. But I wanted to go back to the guilt thing because I have a story I love to tell. It's one of my very favorites. When I lived in the Bay Area, about every 3 months, I would go up to San Francisco Animal Control and do a workshop for them. And after one of the workshops, the director came up to me, and she was a woman, I don't know, probably in her 40s, maybe 50s, and she said, "You know, I've been doing this work for the last 25 years." And I said, "Congratulations, you know, that's wonderful." And she says, "But, you know, there's things that I have a problem with." She says, "Whenever I go to a gathering or, you know, meet new people and you get talking about what you do," and she says, "I tell people I'm a bartender." And I said, "Why do you do that?" And she says, "Well, you know, if I told them that I was the director of animal care for San Francisco, they'd look at me and they'd gasp and say, 'Oh, I could never do that.'" And she says,
Mm.
"It makes me feel guilty. What's wrong with me that
Interesting.
I can do this?" And I looked at her and I said, "Oh, you really have that wrong. You need to look at the person and say, 'Yes, I know I'm a very special person, and it's a blessing that I'm able to help the animals. I love what I do and I feel like I'm making a difference.'" Don't tell them you're a
I love
bartender.
that.
Tell
But
them that you're proud of the work you do. You're part of the solution, not the problem. That's
I love
huge.
that. I do love that. Yeah, that is huge
Isn't
because,
that a
like, you know,
nice
when
story?
people, what I, yeah, it's great. I mean, because like when I tell people what I do, like, oh, I don't know how you do it. I could never do that. And I'm thinking, yeah, why can I do it? I guess it's just, you just put this like emotional block or something in it. You go into triage mode, but you do it, and I don't know how I do it. I don't, and that's
But there's
exactly
nothing
right. You
wrong
don't
with
want.
it. What you do is
I
a
know
gift. It's a
it is a
blessing.
blessing. I always say
And,
it's a blessing and a curse. That's how I describe this job.
well, leave
This,
off the
it's not a job.
curse. Leave off the curse. You know, work on the healthy thing and get rid of the negative talk. They're finding more and more that a lot of our problems stem from our own negative talk in our brains. We have to change to positive thought, and the positive thought on that one is, it's a blessing. I have a gift that I'm able to do this, and it will make a
Mm,
difference. It will. So
hmm.
journaling is very, very important. And what does that do? It takes what's inside and puts it on a piece of paper or on your computer, and it gets it out. There's a thing called morning pages, and every morning you get up and you take like three 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper, and you take a pen or a pencil and you just do stream of consciousness writing. You just write whatever comes to your mind. You don't stop and think, you just write, 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 write. And when I first started doing this many, many years ago, I thought, oh, there's no way I could fill up 3 pages. I mean, I don't have that much going on. Anyway, I could have done 10 pages every morning. And the good thing is, it only belongs to you. No one else ever sees it. So you can name names, you can use words that you would never use in public. You can put down thoughts that you probably could feel guilty about, but you're not going to because they're in your mind and that's how it is. But you put it all out, and at the end of the 3 pages, you just demolish them. You burn them, you shred them, you do whatever you can to get rid of them because you're not going to use them again or read them again. It was about getting what was in there out so you can start your day. So that, it tells a lot too. You think, ooh, I didn't know I felt that way, because oftentimes there's a
Yeah,
lot going
right.
on in our brains that we don't know
Yeah,
about, right?
for
So
sure.
journaling, writing, it's very healing. So walking, stretching, eating nutritious food, pray, whatever it is you do, sit in stillness, read a favorite quote or your mission statement. If you get really confused at work while you're there, read the mission statement, and that should tell you why you're there. If you disagree with the mission statement, you probably should not be there, because people who do not agree with the mission statement of an organization and take a job there go in there and try to change it. They think they know better, and I saw this in animal welfare repeatedly. So it's very important to know your mission statement and live it every day. Listen to music. I already mentioned that. We know it changes
Mm-hmm.
our, and a real good good thing to do is practice letting go rituals. It's kind of like playing with your brain. If you can let go of something, then it won't be there. And if it keeps coming back, keep letting it go. And I talk about this a lot when I do presentations, and I ask for suggestions of what people do. And I've had some wonderful ones. I had a woman who was a young social worker, and they are so dedicated and so
Mm.
enthusiastic about their work. And she said, I have a husband and a dog and two small children. And she says, I'm very dedicated to my work. I've always got the pager, the cell phone, everything on me. And she says, I don't let go very often. But one day I went to the front door, and there was my husband with the foot, tapping, and the 2 year old was hanging on his leg, and the 9 month old was crying for food, and the dog was barking. And she said, I looked at that scene and I thought to myself, if I don't do something about this, uh, my marriage is going to be in trouble. My life's going to fall apart. So she decided she would do. Every night she comes home, she parks her car in the driveway, she goes around to the side of the house, she lifts the garbage can lid, and she stands there for, a minute, two, depending on the day, and she just unloads everything psychologically that she went through that day into the garbage can and shuts the garbage can lid, and she doesn't think about it again. And she says, and then I can go in and be 100% present for my family. So this worked for
That's
her,
good.
which a wonderful one. So
That's a great one because I think we being present is really key because a lot of us, even when we're in the room with our loved ones, we're on the phone, we're on social media, and we're not present with the company that we're with. We're just not present in our lives anymore, Patricia. Like, we're just not present anymore. We're not engaged. We're just walking zombies in front of our phones. And I think being present with your life is important.
it's true, and that's mindfulness, and that goes along with meditation. Meditation and mindfulness. Mindfulness is being 100% present. One of the little things I like, a little story I like to tell is the difference between post traumatic stress and STS, which is compassion fatigue. You're driving to work in the morning and you get into a little car fender bender, and you're pretty upset about it. And you get to work and you find your best friend and you say, "Oh, I had a fender bender this morning," and she says, "Oh, I think I might have jarred my neck. It's sore. I'm going to have to bring the car in. My insurance is going to go up. My partner's not going to be happy because I did this a few months ago." All the things that go through. I won't have a car. Blah 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 blah. So that's um, post traumatic stress, primary stress. It happens to you, and you feel it. You know what it feels like. Secondary traumatic stress is the person listening, and instead of being 100% mindful of listening to this person's story and being listening with what I call detached compassion, she's putting herself in the middle of that story because she had a fender bender 6 months ago. And instead of being mindful of the person telling the story and just being aware of that person and her story, you start ruminating about, oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, Joe was really mad at me when that happened, and it cost so much money. And then pretty soon you're re traumatizing yourself with her story and your story. So what you want to
Mm.
do in situations like that with other people, when it's someone you do want to listen to their story, is after they tell their story, of course, comfort them. Psychological first aid is being present for someone, and then offer help. Gee, I could pick you up every morning for work. It wouldn't be a problem at all if you didn't have a car. Not to worry. I'm there. I can do that. And that's what we need to do. How can I help? Not how can I, trigger myself so that the rest of my day is really lousy because I'm thinking about all the things that happened to me. You have to do it with detached compassion. I think that's the perfect word. So, post traumatic stress, secondary traumatic stress. How are we doing on time? I am not keeping
Yeah,
time.
no, keep going. No, no, keep going. I'm learning lots, and I'm looking for and yeah, keep going.
Okay. And we'll have a session very shortly here about, I want to hear more about you and what you've experienced. And I just want to talk a little bit about loss and grief. Recently, it's probably 6 months now, I had a presentation and I talked a lot about loss and grief because I think people are experiencing loss and grief from everything we lost during particularly COVID-19. And a woman wrote me. I always give them my email and say, you may not want to talk in the group. If you have a question, email me personally, and I will, as I said, I'm not a mental health professional, but I will get you the answer you need. So she wrote me and she says, I thought I was suffering from compassion fatigue. And she said, and now I realize I'm grieving. She said, I have not stopped grieving something awful that happened to me a while back, and I'm in the middle of grief. I'm not compassion fatigued. I'm okay in that area. So that made me think there's a lot of people out there that probably think,
Mm.
they're compassion fatigued, or they're stressed, or they're burnt out, and they're really grieving from so much loss from what we've experienced in the last 5 years, and we continue to experience every single day. Our security has just been blown to bits. I don't think any of us have any
Mm.
security about our lives anymore, and that's all kinds of security. And we're grieving the loss of traditions, the loss of some of us, the loss of people that we actually lost from COVID. Um, I don't have to tell you the list. It's just nonstop. Our
Mm.
gatherings, our traditions, our deeply held beliefs about life, um, our deeply held feelings about faith, and the meaning of our lives. We've lost it, and a lot of people are just
Mm.
groping and just they're existing. They're not thriving, and that's what wellness is.
And I think
Wellness is
yeah, I
thrive.
think existing is how you. Yeah, I think existing is what a lot of us are just doing. Like I always, like I told you, like I feel like I'm just existing. And but can you have like, you talk about like this person was like, I don't have compassion fatigue. I have grief and loss. You can have both, right? Because when we're doing this rescue world, we lose, especially what I do with dealing with tortured, abused animals. We lose a lot of animals. That's just
Yeah.
because of their nature of their injuries, and we just can't save them all. So every time we lose an animal, we're grieving for the loss of that animal. So you can have both, right? I mean, it's not like isolated.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. You can have, that's what's really bad is if it goes on too long, you can have all these things. You can be burnt out from your caregiving. You can feel horrible loss. You can be grieving the ones you lost. You can be compassion fatigued because you're just exhausted. Yeah, you really need help when that happens. But again, some of it is the way we look at it. And one of my favorite stories is, and this was years ago, probably 10 years ago. I was called over at the Marine Mammal Center over in across from San Francisco. They have the very, very famous Marine Mammal Center. And at the time, they were losing all of the little baby seals. They were just dying right and left. And the director, I can't remember his name, what is Dr. something, he called me and he says, we really need some help with compassion fatigue. We're really suffering. And I said, of course I'll be there. So it's in the Marin Headlands over across in the San Francisco Bay. So I drove over there. It was at night. And when I got there, he greeted me and he said, we're about to ready to start, but in the kitchen, there's some coffee and cookies, help yourself. So I went in and just to pour myself a cup of coffee. And there was an elderly woman there. She must have been in her 80s. And we got talking, and I said, how long have you been a volunteer here? And she said, oh, I've volunteered for the last 25 years. And I said, oh, congratulations, that's a long time. I said, but you've probably never seen what you're seeing now with the number of, loss, the death of these little seals, and they don't know what's causing it. And she said, yeah, she says, it does bother me. She says, but I have to tell you, she says, when they bring them up from, down at the seashore, and sometimes I put them in a blanket and carry them myself. She says to herself, even though this little one may not make it, he or she is dying surrounded by love. We're all
Mm-hmm.
giving little ones love, and that is what more can you ask in this life? And I thought, what a very healthy way to look at it. She's providing love
Mm-hmm.
in their final hours. I, and that's what sustained her for 25 years of doing that work.
Mm-hmm.
And,
And
it's not,
that's amazing because that's exactly what a lot of us do. Is we always like, when we do lose the dogs, at least they didn't die alone on the streets or something, and it's like a little bit of comfort. They might have known love for a few minutes, maybe before they die. But it is you. I always try to sort of do that. Like, the chances of this animal surviving is very slim because of the nature of the injuries. But let's just
yes,
see how we
yes.
can help this animal, and you have to try to do that. But it does still affect you. But you do have to put that, I don't know, that detached hat on in a way, a coping
Yeah,
mechanism to be able to help that
that's
animal.
exactly what it is. It's a coping mechanism so you can continue to do the work that you want to do. Uh, One vision that comes to my mind when I think of surrounding yourself, being surrounded by love in your last hours is Mother Teresa. She went out
Mm,
into the gutters and held people while they died. It makes me tear up now thinking of what that woman did in her life. And she was never compassion fatigued. She just kept going because it was a job that needed to be done and she was going to do it. And I've never talked to her, but I have a feeling that's how she did it. I'm here providing love in their last
hmm hmm
moments.
And that's what
And
we all do as caretakers, right? Is just to be there when as
yes,
much as we can in their hour of need, and try to help them what we can, and try to be okay with the dog dying. With the dog dying, it's not okay, but it's okay because we tried, and you can only do
yes,
what you can only
yes.
do,
And
and
I've worked with a
you know,
lot of
and some.
hospice workers, and they are the healthiest group of people I've ever seen. We had hospice workers help us with my mother when she was dying, and they are the most loving, authentic, caring people I think of any caregiving profession. And that's what they do. They feel if they can hold the hand of a dying person and offer comfort, they've done their
Mm,
job. Uh, it, that's
yeah,
a beautiful
that's
way to look
yeah,
at things.
yeah. It
So
is a gift. It is a gift that they're given.
yeah, and it's a different way of thinking, and we have to train our brains to think that way because our survival mechanism through evolution is fear, survival, um, you know, all of that, and we
Mm,
have to change our brains to not think that way. Um,
yes.
we have plenty of resources, in this world for everyone. We just don't share them the way they need to be shared. Um, So, loss and grief on the job. Some of the things that might help definitely hold debriefings following traumatic events, even if it's with another person. When I was with Ronald McDonald House, we always had 47 families in the house. It was an enormous house at Stanford. And then we also had to put people in hotels in Palo Alto that we worked with. And we would always have debriefings. There were only 8 of us that were paid staff, and then I oversaw 300 volunteers, and they weren't allowed in the debriefings. It was just for staff. And we would go in there and we'd have several boxes of Kleenex. One week we lost 6 little ones. And we would sit there and each person, if they wanted to, kind of offered how they were feeling, what they were doing for themselves, and support for others. And, this only lasted maybe an hour, and by then we had all said what we had to say, and someone would say, well, we've got 47 families out there, waiting for us. We better get back to work. And we did. And so that was our letting go. Our debriefing was our letting
Mm,
go. And we would go on and continue on. Vulnerability is healing. I don't know if you know about the work of Dr. Brene Brown. She's very big on vulnerability. When we're vulnerable and say things out of authenticity, it makes others, it gives them the ability to be authentic as
mm,
well. So being honest about your feelings is very important. Know you're not alone. Oh my goodness, the
mm,
caregiving world is huge. We're not alone in the work we do. Take the time you need to grieve. There's no limit on grief. If the grief is complicated grief, and you'll know it because it goes on and on and on, and you can't get out of it, you need to get help. Complicated grief is often, well, complicated. Uh, when you're ready, fill the loss with something new and nurturing. I mean, we all know the worst thing you can say to someone who's lost their dear pet dog, their soulmate, is to say, that's okay, you can go tomorrow and get another one. It's like,
right.
no,
Yeah.
that does not
No, I
help.
don't want that one. I want that one. Yeah, exactly. Or there's plenty of other fish in the sea, or whatever. It's like, no,
Yeah.
no, you don't need that right at that moment.
And people will say that to people who have lost children. Well, that's okay, you have 3 more, or that's okay, you can have
Mm,
another. I mean, I heard it when I worked at Ronald McDonald House, and I just wanted to scream. That's not the way to do it. You have to let the loss work its way through your bones, through your body, through your brain, through your heart, and then maybe you'll do that. We had a little old lady who came in to the shelter, and she had lost her cat. She wrapped him in a towel and brought him into us, and we sat with her for a little while, and she said, I'm never going to get another one. It's just too hard. A week later, she was
mm.
back to adopt another cat. We were teasing her. We said, well, you're back. And she says, I had to come back and get another one. It was just too hard. I just love that story. It was too hard to be without
It's a
one.
great story because it is. So they give you some sort of joy, and that is so true. Like so many people, I'm never going to have another dog. It's too hard. But then they like, no, but you. I always tell people that say that, like, yeah, but you got so much love to give, and there's so many animals that need your love. I know, you can spread your love more. Get another dog, get another cat. So I know it doesn't last long for people. Most people get another dog or a cat pretty
Well,
quickly because
and they're all
they love
different.
the love.
They're
Yep.
all different.
Yep.
We've all had them and think, and then every once in a while there's one. And I used to tell I had a little wire hair fox terrier that I adopted from the shelter. And his name was Mitchell, and he had been traumatized. He had problems, but I just loved him dearly. And the family all had golden retrievers who, sat on their lap and put
Mm.
their head on their shoulder. And I had Mitchell who wouldn't even look at me, even at meal times.
Yeah,
Terriers, when I
right.
adopted him, my colleague said, "You're adopting a terrier. Do you know what you're getting into?" I said, "No, but I loved him."
Right.
Anyway, I did love
Right.
him.
I know.
He lived 13 years. He lived 13 years. But I used to call him my husband. But I used to tell my sister, I said, when I look in Mitchell's eyes, most people love their animals. I said, but when I look in Mitchell's eyes, I'm in love. There's a difference between
Yes,
loving
that's
your
that.
dog and being in love with your dog.
Exactly. I know that's
Yeah,
exactly it for sure, for sure, for sure.
yeah. So
So,
the other thing
yeah, I'm just
is,
look. Go,
on
go
the
ahead.
job, if you've got something going on, is to act, to do something, create a memorial or other remembrances. Shelters often have beautiful gardens that the staff keep up, and they dedicate it to the animals they've lost. You can have a special day of remembrance. Do something, to help with that pain that's always there. It alleviates
Mm,
it a bit when you do something, so act. And it takes real courage to sustain our good health and happiness. It does not come easy. So anyone out there who's listening to some of this and say, "Well, I'll try that and see if it works," please do, because it really does make a difference when you start thriving and life is good and it has meaning again. Sometimes we think it's never going to have meaning again, but it does. It does. We're lucky
yes,
to be
that
here.
is that's important. Is to say that you have meaning. It's just, I mean, and like I think you said it earlier on. It's like that there is some beauty out there, and when you're in such a depression, everything seems so dark and gloomy. But you have to try to find something positive.
Yeah.
There's so many of us that just take one negative thing that happens during the day, and that consumes you for the whole day, and you don't appreciate the 20 other great things that you did or the miracles that happen. You just focus on that one
Yes.
negative thing that just
Acknowledge,
consumes you.
acknowledge the good stuff.
Ex-
Caregivers,
exactly, and that's really important. Yeah,
yeah, we just don't do that.
it's
And find your beauty. Like I said, for
yep.
me, it's living on this gorgeous island. You can't get off the island unless you go by ferry or a small seaplane. And the water and the orca and the bald eagles that fly overhead. I mean, yeah, that's my beauty.
That's
You
that is
know,
your beauty, and I think that I mean, we could probably do another whole session on this, Patricia, because we'll probably have to cut it short here now since we could talk for hours and hours, but I think I would love to have you back on to do some more talking and explore this further, if you're okay with that, because I think our listeners are really getting a lot out of this, because it is such a great topic. And it's such a consuming topic for everybody in this field. So,
yes, yes, and we need it on
because I'm sure we
so
have a lot more that we haven't covered all of it today, and I'm sure. So yeah, we'll maybe set up another podcast. Down the road we can do some, to follow up on the rest of stuff because I want to keep talking and talking about this and having the real conversation. So,
well.
I really wanted to thank you.
I'll send you a copy when my new book comes out. It shouldn't be too long, and it's all about healing and how the healing arts promote good health and happiness. And it's all about things that we do and we don't really realize that it's all healing. And that would be a wonderful thing to talk about. Find
Yeah,
your
let's
beauty.
do that. Let's talk about that. Yeah,
So I
let's
will.
talk
I'll
about that.
put it
Let's
in
have a
the
whole thing on
calendar.
that.
Yeah, I'd
Okay,
like to do
we'll get offline. We'll put it in the calendar because I would love to talk about that. And I really, because I personally want to thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and experience and compassion with us today, because this conversation is really such an important reminder that caring for others must include caring for ourselves too. And,
Yes,
you know,
it is
and to
possible.
anybody,
It is possible to care for others while caring for ourselves in a healthy way.
exactly. And that, exactly. And I think that to anyone who's listening who might be struggling with, compassion fatigue, to know that you are not alone, right? And there is help out there, there is hope, and it's okay to ask for support. So,
Yes.
I want to thank you, Patricia. If you want to listen to this podcast, the Rescue Dog Pod, we'll be having it on Podbean. There's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and also on our social media at the Rescue Dog Pod or at Stray Dog Support, and you can subscribe to us on YouTube. And Patricia, just again to remind people where they can learn about your work, if you want to give us your website again, to know where they can investigate more.
Well, the www.compassionfatigue, one word, .org is the website, and you can take anything off of it. You have my permission. If you're with a group or you have training sessions or whatever, you can take information. Just give the Compassion Fatigue Awareness Project the credit. Uh, let's see, what else was I going to tell you? Oh, if you want to contact me, you have any questions or things you want to share, I'm at patricia@compassionfatigue.org. And the self-care, the self-help, the self-care test is the ProQual, the Professional Quality of Life self-test. Okay, so you can just look that
Okay,
up. It's PROQOL, www.PROQOL.org. Professional Quality
wonderful,
of Life Test. Take it. The
awesome.
only answers have to be honest. You have to be honest with yourself, and you'll get a score. And then, as you do your work to try to, continue to heal and feel better about things, take the test again. Be honest, and you'll find that your scores will change. The healthier
Right,
you are, the happier you are, your scores will change. It works. I,
wonderful. Well,
I
thank
oh,
you
Helen,
so
I've
much,
enjoyed
Patricia.
talking with you, and I'll be in touch.
Yeah, well, absolutely. We're going to go. We'll do another session on healing. And to everybody out there, please take care of yourselves and each other. And we will see you next time on the Rescue Dog Pod. Thank you, everyone.